This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather, ho there, Jeff Gooder Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, January 3rd, 40 years ago, 1983, one of the greatest runs in history happened. It's January 3rd, 1983, Monday Night Football, live from the Metrodome as the Vikings take on the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas, one of the best teams in the NFC, at 6-2 headed to today's game, and Minnesota is 4-4. But you're thinking to yourself, hang on a minute. How can you only play 8 games by January? Well, unfortunately, this was the season in which the NFL took a mid-season hiatus because of the strike. Now, the players struck for good reason because they were thinking they were getting pwned by a lot of things. So, for many weeks in the middle of the season, there would be no football at all. So, other networks had to do airtime. ABC did baseball. Well, they had no problems because, Sunday games they didn't have to worry because they didn't do Sunday games. They only did Monday Night Football. But they still had to figure something out for Monday night. CBS and NBC, the two networks that were broadcasting NFL games, had to think of something. CBS decided to do a few minor league games like Division III and Division II with John Madden and Pat Summerall on the call, which was very good. They even replayed Super Bowl, I believe, 15 or something like that. Maybe a classic Super Bowl. But anyhow, NBC decided to go with the bright idea at the time to put the CFL on. Unfortunately, due to the fact there were many blowouts, the NBC decided to screw that, we'll just do some other stuff. It's like, look, come on. And the 1982 CFL season ended with Edmonton beating Toronto in what they call the Rain Bowl because of all that pissing rain. And let's not forget the fact that Warren Moon that year won the Grey Cup, and then a couple years later he headed to Houston. So Dallas seemed to be in control of things. The only problem with Dallas is that they couldn't win their division because Washington were nearly flawless. Now, of course, divisions didn't really matter this year because of the fact that they only got 9 games in. They decided to do what they called the Super Bowl tournament, and that they would have 8 teams from each conference qualify for the playoffs and all that. So there were fights all over the place on who was going to win and all that. This Vikings Cowboys game was the final nail of the NFL season. So each team would play 9 times. And it's at the Metrodome. Minnesota used to play at Metropolitan, but the Vikings moved to the Metrodome in 1982, as did the Twins. So it was Monday Night Football. Danny Don Meredith was there. I don't know who else. I forgot. And Frank Gifford were there. I don't think Cosell was there, if memory serves me right. He probably was. But anyway, the game started auspiciously for the Cowboys. After a Raphael Septian field goal, Dennis Furman had a pick 6, 10-0. Minnesota got a field goal by Rick Danmeyer, and then Ted Brown put up a pair of touchdown runs, making 17-10 Vikings. Then Septian kicked a field goal. Then John Bernard Turner with a pick 6, 24-13 Vikings. They were really ready for prime time. And then the Cowboys had the ball pinned at their 1-yard line. As you can look at the picture, they only had 10 guys on offense. You need to have 11. So they decided we might as well hand off to Tony Dorsett. It's kind of a risky play because if Dorsett gets tackled in the end zone, that's a safety. But somehow, in some way, Tony Dorsett put on a clinic. He ran the ball down the sidelines and eluded every Vikings defender and scored 7 points. It was unbelievable. It was like, wow. The Dallas Cowboys pulled that off. Tony Dorsett, only him, he of the 1976 national title with the Pitt Panthers and then winning the Super Bowl the next year with the Cowboys. He of the, damn it, Seattle, why did you have to trade that second overall pick to Dallas? So that Dallas could get Dorsett. Well, anyway, Dorsett was an icon. Now, I would like to say that helped Dallas win the game. Well, Cowboys did take the lead 27-24 on a touchdown run by Ron Springs. But, unfortunately, that wasn't the end of the story. Tommy Kramer, the Rice quarterback, threw it to Ricky Young for a touchdown. Vikings win 31-27. The Cowboys were ticked off at themselves. Danny White threw for 191 yards and a pick. Tommy Kramer, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. So, yeah, that's what happened there. Tony Dorsett's 99-yard run would add to his total. By the end of the day, Dorsett had 16 carries for 153 yards and a touchdown. Ted Brown had 100 yards carrying for a touchdown for the Vikings, so that wasn't that bad. So it was a pretty good moment. So that's what happened. So that's what happened. That Dallas loss didn't do anything in the standings, kind of. Dallas was tied into they were number 2, right? They were number 2 or no? I think they were number 2. Where's Tampa? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so Dallas was the 2 seed. They didn't take divisions into account. So the Cowboys would go on to be 6-3, the second best team in the NFC, as Washington was 8-1. That Vikings win did get them to the playoffs. The Lions, on a tiebreak with the Giants and Saints, got to that 8 seed and took on Washington. Yeah, I think Tampa was 7th. So, yeah. The Vikings, their reward was a home game in the wild card against the Atlanta Falcons. Under normal circumstances, the Redskins, Packers, and Falcons would be 1, 2, 3. Well, the Skins and the Packers would be the 1, 2. Skins would be number 1, Packers would be number 2, Falcons would be number 3, going to a wild card game. And at that time, Dallas would have been probably playing either Minnesota or St. Louis, because the wild card game was just between the 4 and 5 seeds back then. So Dallas would have hosted a wild card game to face possibly Green Bay, because if Dallas won, they couldn't face Washington in the divisional round because you can't have 2 teams in the same division. So Dallas would have probably had to head to Green Bay. But regardless, and then, it would have been the Raiders would have won the AFC West. Well, they won the West, so the Raiders, and I think it was the Dolphins who were the 2 seed that year. I think. But, well, Cincy would have been the 3 seed, and then the Jets, Steelers, and Chargers, I don't know who would have faced each other for that wildcard spot. But as is, the Cowboys hosted Tampa in the wildcard playoffs and won 30-17. The Vikings hosted Atlanta and won 30-24. So that was good. Dallas would go on to beat Green Bay in the divisional round 37-26, having home field advantage. If it was the normal divisions in place, they would have went to Green Bay. They won 37-26. The Vikings would head to Washington, lose 21-7 in the NFC semifinals. Dallas would lose to Washington in the conference championship 31-17. So, even though Dallas lost, they kind of won in a sense. They got to the final 2 of the NFC. So, whatever. But yeah, 99 yards and the bench ain't won. Hit me! I know it's been done a couple of times, but Tony Dorsett was the pioneer of the 99-yard run. Fighting on it. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.